listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, let me get the camera or the mic, everything set up. I got caught here. Somebody texted right at the last minute. Ever happened to you?
It always happens.
I know. I got Rich Hooper here from The Journey, 88.3. Our friends in Johnson County here to talk about his little journey through radio, so to speak, and also what they do and what they're all about and the kind of music they play. Mm-hmm. You know, like I mentioned before, this is one of my wife's favorite stations.
Yeah.
Now that also K-Love now has replaced KLTY, you're definitely going to be the go-to place, I hope.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, and being non-commercial, it's also better because you get more music that way, right?
More music, and we're serving the community. So
right.
You won't find that with just about any other station in the area.
I'd like to think community radio does that, but yeah,
well, absolutely. Absolutely.
I had to throw that in there.
Yes.
I got Josh on the mic over there. So how you doing?
A lot better after last time.
Yeah, he said last time we had all these problems, said, well, we're going to have problems like that today? Well, I hope not. That's a very reassuring answer.
Yeah, hope is not a strategy. Let's figure out a system here.
Well, we're going to talk about what the journey's all about and
mm-hmm.
what y'all's plans are, because I know you have some ideas. You've been with them about a year and a half, right?
Yep, just about almost 2 years, yeah.
How did they find you?
So I started out as their consultant.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a friend that introduced me to the former manager and came in as their consultant to help them with programming and strategy and structure and those things. And the manager at the time had a baby and wanted to stay home and raise the baby. And I fell in love with the journey, with Johnson County, and just kind of felt like this is where the Lord was calling us.
Well, you also still live in McKinney, but you make that drive, not every day, but
right.
you have like a place you can flop, I guess.
Temporary housing here for 2 nights a week or so.
Yes,
yeah.
But it's still a good drive. I've got a close friend in McKinney, and when I make the drive or he makes the drive, you need to pack a sandwich with you because
absolutely,
absolutely.
Well, we just had our first grandbaby. He's 3 months old, and so we decided not to move away from Oliver, and also my mom who lives there in the community. And so we've been. I, in fact, was born in McKinney and grew up there. We've lived in Princeton, east of McKinney, for 23 years. So we don't want to just move away from there, but my heart and a lot of my time is here in Johnson County.
Well, Johnson County was not where I was raised either. I was raised in Collin County like you. I was in Plano.
Okay.
And, and I moved out here for a job like you did. And I've really enjoyed this community. I wanted to live in the community I taught in. And when they offered me the classes that I really always wanted to teach back in 1990 at the high school, my wife and I said, well, let's just make this happen. And we've been here since.
Yeah.
All this time we've seen a lot of changes, not just in Burleson, certainly, but in Johnson County as a whole, because all these communities are growing. And also, we're getting to be more and more connected to the Metroplex. Back then, DFW was out there, of course, and a lot of people worked in it, but it really was, we were a separate community. Now we're much more integrated into the community than we used to be. But I'm going to sit here and make sure we share this with all the right people.
Yes.
All right? Yeah. Right, so they can all get it as well. But let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors as well, because they make all this possible. Just like you have your donors, these are my donors. You may be nonprofit. I'm just barely profit, but whatever. It's all good.
It takes everybody doing something.
It's all right. I do this not really for, just the money, so to speak. I mean, it's folding money for me. It's not like rent money, but it's something that I've been enjoying a lot. I think I've always wanted to be in the radio business, and this is as close as I'll get. But anyway, let's talk about the guys that make this dream come true, and that'll be Our Place with Otto. As always, it's a great breakfast or a great lunch. You've probably been there a few times. You've been probably one in Cleburne, right?
I've been to both.
Oh, really? Okay.
Love both of them. Yeah, it's one of my favorite brunch places.
Yes. I went to the one in Cleburne for the first time last week. I don't get to Cleburne very often, but I was there, and of course, it's time for lunch. Where do you go? Do you go to Our Place and that kind of thing? Also, Gina's is like that. I've really enjoyed Gina's.
I haven't been there yet. I want to go.
It's on Renfro. It's right off about a block from the main intersection of Wilshire and Renfro. And it's a kind of an old school pizza place. So you go in there, have the TV going, they have the ball game on, they have the soul music in the background. It's a good place.
Haven't had lunch yet. That may be where I go.
That's where I actually am going there today. My wife is busy tonight. She's with her sister, so I'm going to go pick up something for the way home.
Awesome.
I don't want to make cook for me.
No, right,
No.
right.
Also, thank you to our friends over at Wild Cigar. If you want a good cigar, you want a great cigar, there's a good place to do it. They have a great humidor, and they have a real good relationship with the community. They do a lot of community-oriented activities. You can count on them for donations to all the nonprofit events, whatever else. But it's a very fine place, and I know the owners, and they have a place you could conduct business. They have like a little conference room. They have a nice patio over at the. It's over off a Hidden Creek. It's at the Standard. See, I keep getting those two mixed up. I'm not really good at this like you are. But with the Standard. You ever do that on the air? Blah, blah,
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just me. I hear one guy on my radio station, not my radio station, I mean the one I listen to the sports talk, and I'm like, how in the world did this guy ever get in a job? It makes me feel better.
He knows somebody.
Yeah.
Has some blackmail on somebody.
Yeah, all right. But Wild Cigar, go out and check it out. All right. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing. John Williams, 817-734-2756. This is a Burleson business, and they're in Old Town, so they're local folks. And John will come check your roof out. Like I said, 817-734-2756. And supposedly, we're going to have some hard weather next week. I did not know that till I was driving over here. I believe it when I see it.
Absolutely.
My longtime listeners know that when it comes to weather, I'm an agnostic.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going out, particularly when they say snow, and I'm like, okay, give me a break. But anyway, call John. He'll come check your roof out, and he'll tell you what's going on. If you need something, he'll tell you. If you don't, he'll tell you. So he's not there to upsell you and make you feel like your roof's about to cave in when you're just fine and dandy. Also, thank you to Jeff Kelly at 817-781-0546 with the Wethington Agency. I had him on about 3 weeks ago when we were talking about a lot of the developments going on, not just in Burleson, but, Godley and Joshua. Your listening area, in effect, is just blowing up. And I know you're based out of Keene. I don't know if Keene's blowing up yet.
There's a few developments being built out there, so yeah.
I don't get out there very often, so I don't really see much about Keene or hear much about it. It's always been a real quiet community, kind of to itself, but it's starting to expand from what I've heard. But like I said, Alvarado is starting to expand, but Joshua, golly, good heavens, we're still growing at a good pace too. So there you go. But anyway, thank you, Jeff. Oh, you give him an email at Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com, and he'll tell you what's going on. Oh, our friend Megan's watching, by the way.
Awesome. Hey, Megan.
I keep track of that.
Yeah.
All right. Also, friends at Hotworks, Michelle Humphrey, that's infrared workouts. Say it right. You ever been to an infrared workout?
No.
It's like a basic workout. It's not like heavy lifting or like that, but it's like it's exercise, it's cardio, it's the bike, it's Pilates, whatever. But it's with the infrared system, it reduces the stress on your body and it works the muscles and tendons more, as opposed to just it's a less painful way to work out, so to speak.
Yeah. Can you just go in and lay down and let the infrared burn the fat off? I mean, that would be
they
great.
do have a hot box, yeah.
Okay.
They have a sauna type thing.
It's my kind of workout.
Yeah, but it basically, say you want to go in there and you want to do some on a treadmill or something.
Yeah.
It's in a small environment with the infrared system, so you're maximizing the workout without taxing your body.
Very clever.
And she's been on the show 3 or 4 times at least when we talk about nutrition and about taking care of yourself and all that. She's an advocate for that. So she's also a fellow member of the chamber, which you are as well, as is John at Old Pro, as is Jeff Kelly. I mean, a lot of people that sponsor the show that are also in the Chamber of Commerce. And thank you to our friend Tiffany Griffin, also a chamber member at Local Life Magazine. It comes out next week. It goes to 30,000 homes. It's got a lot of the great ads and business activities going on. She always has a great cover story. I don't know what the cover story is this time. I saw her last Saturday at the chamber event. You missed that, right?
I did. I was out of town.
Yeah, you're doing a conference of some sort, and it was a great event. Melissa and Sarah did a great job.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it was really good, and you get a lot of connections there. And Tiffany was there, and I neglected to ask her. She was. You were just talking about other things, other than business. Oh my goodness!
I know, right?
Anyway, Local Life is coming your way next week, and Burleson Buzz. If you're not familiar with the Burleson Buzz, Rich, it's a local blog. A young man put it together. because we don't have a lot of local news. And that my station and him are really what we're striving to do is be like a local source of information.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a lot of his information on the radio. I do it update that comes on about once every 4 hours, and I use his information with his permission, by the way.
Sure,
I mean, this is our swap deal. But Burleson Buzz is a really good publication. It's on an online blog, and so there you are. In fact, I'm on the last issue, so to speak, the last issue.
Mm-hmm.
He came by. We did an interview about what's going on. So there you go. Anything else? I think we had. Oh yes, we have one new guy here. This is our second time to do for Jerry Kavanaugh, Medicare counseling. Now I'm still kind of getting acquainted with his services, but what Jerry does is basically help people get on to Medicare.
Oh, that's great.
And Medicare pays for this, so you don't have to pay for it. All right. And he's over on the third floor, over in that building that has Rio Mambo and the Rim and all that, right off the highway. And so he'll come in and help you get on the Medicare system, but also not just getting on the system, but also, they have provisions for therapy, for counseling, things of that nature. I mean, you're dealing with maybe an older client that has gone through a lot, and it's getting on Medicare for a lot of people is kind of, it's a bittersweet experience.
Right.
Because I talked to older folks about it, and I'm about to get on in about 2 or 3 years. And it's almost like an acknowledgement of where you are in your life and that kind of thing.
Well, and sometimes getting Medicare for you or your loved one, that's a process. So to have somebody to walk that through with you is very valuable.
But what I liked about Jerry's outfit is not just he's just going to get you hooked up at Medicare and then send you on your way.
Mm-hmm.
They also have these other services available to you as well. Like I'm going to read some of his materials sent me. Our certified Medicare mental health provider team is dedicated to helping you embrace emotional well-being and a brighter future. And so they're doing, like I said, counseling and therapy as well. And so how do you get a hold of them? The number is 817-992-8034. It's 817-992-8034. Or you can email Gerard, GERARD, at MedicareCounselingAndTherapy.com. Now, again, they're here in town on the third floor of that building. I don't know what the building is called, but everybody knows it's the building with Rio Mambo. The entrance to their place is right next to the entrance to Rio Mambo. You walk up, boom, up the elevator, there you are. And so Jerry will take care of you. And I definitely, when Rob and I get to that point, we're definitely going to use it. And like I said, it's paid for by Medicare, not
Robin's a long way away from that, by the way.
Okay.
I'm just getting brownie points.
Yeah.
Love you, Robin.
No, but she said, tell Rich to give me a shout out.
Okay, I will. There you go, Robin. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe she'll listen to my show for a change, doggone her. No, she listens every now and then. But let's talk about you for a while, doggone it. First of all, when you were a young man growing up in McKinney and Prosper and Collin County and all that, was being on the radio what you wanted to do?
When I was 10 years old, I was fascinated with it. I had a cousin that worked at a station that you and I've talked about, KXVI, which is an old Southern gospel station, AM station, based out of Plano area.
All right.
And so she worked there, and she took me on a tour of the studio. And again, I was 10. I was just fascinated with radio. And this will age me. That year, I got Mr. Microphone and some headphones that you could tune in a radio.
Right.
And so I could tune in the frequency of the Mr. Microphone, and I just thought I was, Wolfman Jack or something. I was
Jack.
I was on the radio,
Some of the younger listeners may not be familiar with Wolfman Jack, but he was I don't know an icon in radio, and then he got into television as well. But it's like if you wanted to hit, you wanted Wolfman Jack to announce it because he was the man.
He was, yeah. And so I just listening to radio in Dallas growing up. We talked about some of my heroes, Ron Chapman and Terry Dorsey, and Jody Dean, and a lot of these. Frank Reed, when KL2I started 40 years ago. A lot of the different people that were on the air just really fell in love with the business. And pretty quickly after I graduated high school, I started. In fact, the year after I graduated, I started in radio. 1988. My first job was down in Brownwood, Texas, at KBWD KOXE AM/FM combo station, and we were playing oldies at the time. So here I am, fresh out of high school, and I'm working at a station that's playing. When I say oldies, I mean Perry Como and Andy Williams.
Ooh, my! I was thinking,
classic rock kind of stuff.
the Platters or Elvis
this
or
was
something like that.
Classic oldies, which I, as a musician, I still appreciated that. And then the FM was a country station that I worked at as well. But just really getting my feet in the water. And then in 1993 is when I started working at a station here in Dallas. And so have been in the Dallas area ever since.
They tell me getting into radio is a quick way to get rich. Is that right?
Well, no. No.
That was part of my deal. See, I was like you when I was growing up in the 70s. We were listening to the Rock and Roll Zoo, La Bella and Rhodey in the morning, and, and John Dillon in the afternoon, and all this other stuff. And then at Q102 with Redbeard and they just made it sound like they were just right on the cutting edge of everything that was cool and hip.
Man. Kid Craddock. He was one of my heroes, too.
Well, like I mentioned before, Jonathan Cook, who owns this building, was close with Kid Craddock. Right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you'd hear them on the radio and think, man, they got it all together. They're talking to the guys at Fog Hat and, they're all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's so cool. And then you find out, the parts of radio it's a tough way to break into.
Just like any industry, I guess, there's some behind the scenes parts that are not as fun. The glamorous part, which is, with the headphones on and on the mic, that's awesome. But 80% of what you do behind the scenes can be laborious. And then depending on where you work, it could be kind of a dark place. But I'm thankful that most of my radio career has been in Christian radio, non-commercial Christian radio, so that we've really focused more on ministry aspect. Our bottom line is mission. It's not money. And so even though as a nonprofit, you still have to make money to operate and be successful, but our goal is not to make money. Our goal is to accomplish the mission that God has given us.
Well, it does take certain pressures off because you're not constantly having to fight the ratings fight against other competition and whatever else. And, but when I was thinking about getting into radio, which was, I don't know how seriously I thought about it, what I envisioned was not just, being the really cool disc jockey, but you get to meet all these celebrities and
that's the fun part.
And when I was in college at Baylor, we had a radio station and I had about 6 friends, a couple, 3 or 4 of my fraternity brothers and a couple of friends that were jocks on the station. And it was very informal, so I'd go in and sit in the booth with them, and I'd hand them these new albums. Hey, let's hear this one. Okay, because they were training people for radio. They weren't really necessarily fighting for ratings.
Yeah,
and that's the first time I heard some of the early '80 bands that's still around, like U2 and that crowd. And
you had Word Records there in Waco.
Yeah, Word. I've met several other artists there, and also quite often, this happened at least 3 times I can remember off the top of my head, and probably more, where a band was debuting an album and they would first time played live would be in Waco.
Sure.
And and basically it'd be very cheap tickets or free even. And it'd be at a venue. There's a couple of venues in town that were hold maybe about 500 people and 600 people. And so I heard some bands that, today after 40 years probably aren't around anymore, but they had some longevity. And I still have those albums. I collected albums, and so, but having Word in there really exposed me to a lot of the early Christian music.
Yeah, we are really establishing even better relationships with record labels because as a Christian music station, one of the things we want to do is connect our listeners not just with the music, but with the artist. And so when they're coming to town, like Dickey's Arena right here in Fort Worth in our backyard, anytime any contemporary Christian music a group is going to be there, we want to give away tickets. We want to be on site. We want to give our listeners that connection with those artists as well.
Well, most of the concerts I saw back in the late 70s through the early to mid 80s were not at venues anything like Dickey's because the Christian music world, at least my section that I heard, the more contemporary, the more rock and roll, they wouldn't sell out Dickey's at all, and they couldn't afford it. But they play in smaller venues. Prestonwood Baptist had a pretty good rotation of musicians that come through, like Dallas Home. I mean, some of your listeners know who these people are.
Yeah.
The younger generation probably has no idea, but I know who Dallas Home is, or Chuck Gerard, or these others. Also, a couple of times that we would play at the Bronco Bowl. When we first met, talked about how we both went to the same concert.
Right, it's funny. Yeah. Daniel Amos, wasn't it?
Yes, Daniel Amos. Daniel Amos put out a ton of albums. Now, see, a lot of the listeners, they're not really familiar with that, but if you're in that genre, it's like almost like a whole world unto itself, that Christian music. And Waco was a good place to do it because they also had a couple of good music stores that would stock a lot of the Christian albums from Word or other labels as well. And there's a one place in Dallas my buddy and I used to go to. It's long since gone, called His Place over in Oak Cliff. And it was if you wanted obscure alternative Christian music, that's the place to get it.
Yeah. In my era, Living Vine in Irving was a huge big bookstore. In fact, interestingly, I was working for another Christian radio station here in Dallas and, on staff there, program director. But on my wife's car, we had a KLTY bumper sticker. And during the time, KLTY was doing a contest that if they saw that bumper sticker on your car, they would stop you and give you $94.10 because they were at 94.1 at the time.
Right.
Well, I got stopped by Scott Wilder, who worked at KLTY, and he said, I want to give you $94.1. And I'm like, well, I actually work for another radio station. He said, don't worry about it. Just keep it.
Yeah.
So I actually won a contest working for, which is not really supposed to happen. So I can say that because KLTY isn't on the air anymore. So,
well, you see that movie, Jesus Revolution, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would recommend anybody who wants to understand better this genre that we're talking about or this atmosphere we're talking about to watch that movie because they really did a pretty good job of showing that, I guess, that kind of alternative embracing of the Christian faith, you want to say. It was that young people with their way of doing things, their music, and, and they weren't, with their clothing and their style and whatever else. And I was a little too young for that. When the Jesus Revolution time was set, I'd be about 10 maybe. But it influenced my youth absolutely through the kind of music we sang in youth choir, the kind of activities we did in youth, the kind of presentations that we would go and see of the gospel, the kind of music, the concerts we would go to. All of that came from that kind of just I don't know, what you call a genesis, if you will, of that Christian music, of alternative Christian music. And when I go to Baylor, there was other people like me that had experienced it as well. So we had a lot of albums to share and mix and match and whatever else. And, it just is, it's interesting because the only radio station that played anything other than hymns that was a Christian station was KPBC.
Yep.
All right. You remember that one?
I
right?
do.
And it was hardly what I'd call a rock and roll station at all, but they played songs that weren't necessarily hymns, but they had, had drums and bass and guitar.
Yeah, it was contemporary music for the time.
We're not even talking about metal or rock and roll. We're talking about something like, a band like Seals and Crofts or Bread or that kind of, soft rock kind of thing.
Yeah, in mainstream radio, they call it middle of the road.
I guess
that format. And so that was kind of their Christian middle of the road format. Yeah, I loved Deacon Don Evans, who was on KPBC. I used to listen to him quite a bit.
Well, that was the only station, if you wanted to listen to Christian music. And they had some of the artists that we listened to, but not their more amped up stuff. It was more their softer stuff. But that was the only place you're going to hear it. And so we liked it. But we also, my buddies and I, would like to have had something that was playing music more like we liked, which was, when they say rock and roll, we're not talking about this heavy duty stuff. We're talking about, the same level of rock and roll as, say, Kansas or Styx or Journey, that crowd. Speaking of which, Kansas, I don't know if you know about their story, but Kerry Livgren was a big Christian artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some of his albums when he left Kansas and he did his own stuff. And I saw him one time.
Elefante brothers as well.
Right.
Yeah, do you know Elefante?
Yes.
Yeah, they did some Christian music after they not left Kansas, but after Kansas, stopped touring.
Well, I've seen them twice now, and they play songs from their main albums and whatever else, but it was great to see somebody. That was what really inspired my friends and I, that some of the secular people, if you will, were embracing Christian music. I remember when Bob Dylan came out with his Slow Train Coming album. Absolutely outstanding. It's still one of my favorite Christian-based albums ever.
Hmm.
And I would recommend, if you're listening to, everybody knows Bob Dylan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they think of his folk stuff, and they think of some other stuff that he did afterwards. But for about 5-year span, he did 3 albums that were Christian-oriented. Slow Train Coming, and another one called Saved, which is pretty apparent what that's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a third one, his title escapes me at the moment. And even now, he still puts references in there, even though it's not quite as overt as those albums were. That's really good stuff. Now, is that the stuff you would play? I don't know. I've heard your stuff, and I'm in the car with Robin. That's what we're going to listen to, right? Yep. And it's Bob Dylan's an acquired taste. I'll put it that way.
Sure. So, yeah.
But a lot of the stuff we were listening to would fit right in with what you play now.
Well, the message is very similar to some of the songs that we play now. It's what we're playing is contemporary Christian music, adult contemporary style music, but the message is going to be the same as far as looking for hope, looking for faith, looking for encouragement. And in fact, that's our mission at The Journey, is to provide that encouragement to anybody that's listening through Christian music and media and the things we say between the songs. We're living life with you as our listener. We're not just on the radio saying, "Hey, we've got it together, and you should too." In fact, we're talking about. I used to have it together, but then I misplaced it. I mean, it's I don't. We're living life together, just walking through the same type of things, but we can stay encouraged through the hope that we find in Christ, which is, we're Christ-centered station. And so that's really our mission. That's what we want to do, is use that music to speak to where we are in our own lives.
Well, I've seen it, like with my wife, Robin, when times are hard, it just seems like the right song comes on at the right time.
Absolutely. We hear that often.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
I said, I was really in a bad place, and then I heard this song and kind of gave me enough juice to keep going forward and that kind of thing.
It's amazing how God does that. I served as music directors for stations, and then even at The Journey, we have a music director. But we always say that God is the best music director, because He knows when a song is going to play, when someone's going to be listening, and exactly what they need to hear. And He speaks right to where they are.
Now, you're not involved in like some of your competitors. They do like talk shows, or they do studies and whatnot. Y'all really are music oriented.
We're 24/7 contemporary Christian music station. There we have stations that do teaching and talk. They're called a hybrid format, where they do some music during morning and afternoon drives, and then they do some teaching programs. I used to work at one of the stations that does that. But what we feel called to do here in the Metroplex is to be all music. We have some little short 1-minute features that we play that will give some encouraging and even some teaching about what the Word of God says, but we don't spend too much time in between songs. We get right back to the music.
Yeah, you do it like a lot of them do. They have like a run of music and then some comment and some discussion, maybe a little bit, and then you acknowledge the donors. And these aren't just sponsors, I guess. They also you call them donors. I look at my sponsors almost like donors, because it's not so much they endorse everything I say, but they endorse the purpose, and that's what your donors are doing too. They're endorsing the purpose, and I'm quite sure they endorse everything y'all are about, though.
We are a non-commercial station, but so 80% of our support is from listeners that give on a monthly basis or one-time basis to help support us, but another 20% are for businesses that we call business partners, and so it would be businesses that would support the station, and then in return we run a spot or a commercial. That's what it sounds like. That will say thank you to them for their support.
Yeah, but it's different. Like when I get up there and do my sponsors, say, what they're about, and, when I talk about them personally, but basically you're saying thank you for your support. Yeah. And if you want to know more, you direct them.
Here's where they are.
Yeah.
Their website. We're really appealing to the philanthropic part of the businesses to say, if you believe in our mission and what we're trying to accomplish and are accomplishing in Johnson and Southern Tarrant County, then you could support us as a business. Now, we want to say thank you, because it's kind of it is a benefit for your name to be recognized.
Sure.
We tell businesses all the time, we can't promise you foot traffic. We can't promise you that if we mention your spot that, all these people are going to go run into your business. But what we can tell you is our listeners are very loyal, and because they believe in our mission, and any business that will help support that mission it goes a long way with our listeners.
Sure, it's a relationship, and again, it's similar to my sponsors. We have a relationship, and they just support what I'm doing now. They're also wanting to increase foot traffic, of course, and that's all well and good, but it's appropriate. But in y'all's case, y'all are mission oriented,
Sure.
And now, as far as like people that want to donate, on your website, I assume, like most others, you have a donate button and whatnot.
Top right-hand corner, it says donate. You can click there and set up. You can give one time, or you can set up a monthly recurring gift.
And from what my nonprofit friends have told me, that recurring gift means a lot to them, not just because you're giving them money, but it helps with their budgeting and their plans and whatever else. They all say, we'll take whatever you give.
Absolutely.
If you want to give a one-time gift of X, we'll take it and be very grateful. But if they said, I could give you $10 a month or $120 in one pop, they'd probably take $10 a month because they could plan better that way.
Sure. It helps us because, your expenses for the most part are monthly. So it's helpful to have the income. It used to be that people would think, why would I give money to a radio station? Well, because of our listener-supported status, we don't take commercial money. We don't take money from businesses and run commercials, so it's a totally different thing. But the other thing I would say is you also don't have to give to listen to the station. Even though you can support us, probably 5 to 10% of those who listen will support the station. But if you think about it, these days we think more like subscriptions, right? Because of a lot of the streaming services that we have, it's a subscription basis. So we tell people maybe think about it that way, that even though you're not subscribing to if you don't make your payment, we're going to pull your membership and pull your access to the station. But if you think about it that way, you're subscribing to, again, not just the music that we play and helping us to pay bills, because nobody wants to do that. It's boring. I mean, we do pay bills, but nobody gets excited about it.
Well, it's you are a business. So you have obligations. You got salaries and bills and all the et cetera. It's like the nonprofit people I talk to. That's one thing we were talking beforehand about how the show has evolved from one type of format originally to this format we're doing now, and I got to know a lot of these nonprofit organizations, and they do great work, but they also got to run it appropriately, like a business.
Sure, be a good steward of the business and the ministry that God's put in your hands. So you work on being a good steward with limiting your expenses as much as possible and raising the support. And as the station manager for the Journey, that's my job, is to look at the expenses and the income and make sure that we're being a good steward. But it's also to look at the opportunities that we have for growth and expansion, and look at what we can do in the future because it's all about you talked about this earlier. You referenced it's not about the ratings and all that. So there are two things that I look at as a ministry. There's the ROI, which most people would understand, return on investment. What are we getting back for the money, the time, talent, treasure that we spend? Well, that's going to be the dollars that we bring in. That's going to be the ratings, which I can tell you more about how we know that. But then there's also ROM, return on ministry. And that's not as quantifiable, but that's listener testimonies. That's the stories of the right song at the right time. I was sitting in, one lady told us she was driving down the road after leaving the NICU and her baby not doing well, and a song came on that just ministered hope to her. And I'm like, that is way beyond what radio is, and it's more about being used as a tool of God to really speak to you right where you are. And we used to use this phrase at a station I used to work at, a constant Christian companion. We're on the air 24/7, 365. You get up middle of the night at 3 a.m., we're on the air playing great music.
I have to admit, I have not gotten up at 3 a.m.
Well, if I do, I'm typically not turning the radio on.
But do you have live personnel on?
No, it's pre-recorded that time of night. It's hard to get somebody that wants to stay in the studio that time these days.
Well, it'd be kind of fun for a little while, but then after a while, getting up at midnight to go work for 4 hours or whatever,
absolutely,
may not be quite as much fun. But anyway, you're talking about the return on a ministry. That's very interesting. How do people make that known to you? Do they just call you up or send you emails or whatever?
It's through social media posts. It's through phone calls. It's through when we do our 3 fundraising events on the air every year. We have 3 different times that we just make the need known to our listeners and give them an opportunity to support us online or call in. We'll hear their stories and testimonies there. At events we go to, and they come to our booth and they tell us the testimonies of what God has done. So we love to hear those stories because that's what feeds our soul, right? That's what energizes us and motivates us to keep doing what we do. That's the fuel that we're looking for.
Oh, yes. It's like when I was teaching school, and sometimes I go through these periods where, like, am I wasting my time here? And then some kid would say, hey, something really kind.
Yeah.
And it really pick you up and think, okay, I'm not wasting my time here. I can't tell you how many times that a student or maybe a former student would email me or call me or run it across, and they'll say, oh, your class really helped me out, or, something really kind. And it just, it kept me in the game, and that's what happens with y'all, I'm sure. Now, you mentioned your fundraising opportunities. Do y'all do events, or is it basically similar to what you see on PBS or whatever?
It's much like that. We call it a share-a-thon or a telethon, where we take 3 days during the spring, 3 days during the fall, and then maybe a couple of days year end. And we get on the air and just share stories. We have listener testimonies, audio from listeners, written testimonies, and we just share the stories and say, here's how people's lives are touched by the journey. Johnson County, Tarrant County, but also around the world listening online. And if you would like to be a part of helping us to continue to do that, you can give online, or we give a phone number for people to call. They can even text that number to give. And so we do that. We take about 3 days out of and then we play music. We still play music during that time. It's not just wall-to-wall talking. But yeah, it's an opportunity for us to remind people that we're listener-supported, give them an opportunity to get on board to help continue the ministry.
Well, there's another station that's listener supported. It's not a Christian station. It's KXT. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they do this as well. And they play, a different style of music entirely, but they do these, about a week or so where they'll play about half a dozen songs, and about once an hour, they'll take about 7 to 10 minutes to talk about, why they need the support and all this other stuff. And, you see the PBS fund drives and all this other business. But as far as y'all have to do this, you say 3 times?
Three times.
Okay, I'd like for you, next time you're about to do one, let me know. We can run it,
Absolutely.
some spots here to help promote that for you, because I believe in your mission. I had somebody ask me, wait a minute, you don't you have a radio station? You don't want to have him on? I go, we operate in different lanes.
Sure.
And not just different lanes, but you're full on ministry. I want to do information for the city and all this other business.
Yeah.
And I put my church services on.
There you go.
But you have a different ministry altogether.
Sure.
And a more eternal one, you might say. And so that's why I'm really glad I could help promote it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing, too, with community radio, because there's an aspect of the journey we want people to be entertained as well.
Yeah.
We don't want you to grit your teeth and go, I'm going to listen to it because it's ministry. Frankly,
like going to church.
It's like dating an ugly woman. You're like, I'm not going to keep dating somebody I'm not attracted to for some reason. But the longer you stay in relationship with that person, the longer you realize there's more to it than what you initially saw.
Well, I know more Christian music than probably I realized, because, like I said, my wife listens to it and whatnot. And the Christian music I listen to is would be called classic. I mean, the old school stuff that I grew up with. I mean, I'm not as familiar or conversant with a lot of the current groups or performers like I was, say, 20 years ago. Those are still who I listen to, like Daniel Amos. I bet probably very few people have ever heard of that band. Josh, you ever heard of that band, Daniel Amos?
A little before my time, unfortunately.
Yeah, get out of here.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
It may have been before his parents' time.
No. It was 80s,
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my dad. That'd be my dad's son.
All right, awesome.
Okay. And
Sweet Comfort Band. Man, I love Sweet Comfort Band. Still do.
Well, they were a little soft for me, but anyway.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I could appreciate a lot of different musical styles. Heavy metal, heavy rock wasn't necessarily something I listened to a lot.
Well, they didn't have a lot of that in Christian music, but they did have some.
Yeah.
And you had to go look for it. You couldn't find it on the air. The first Christian artist I heard was Larry Norman. Okay. And I remember a buddy played me a song. I said, "That's Christian music."
Yeah.
It's great.
I would
fantastic.
say that probably Larry Norman is probably the first contemporary Christian music artist, really.
Yeah.
He was the godfather of contemporary Christian music that took it outside of hymns and outside of the church and made it more popular.
Oh yeah,
Outside of the church.
I have about 4 or 5 of his albums, and you're not going to hear them on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not. Again, we're not talking about like Led Zeppelin or something like that.
Right,
Nothing like that at all. But it was, it was more upbeat and more contemporary. And then you had like guys like Randy Stonehill, and there was one band that came out, and they were kind of a heavy duty called Resurrection Band or Res Band.
Res
And,
Band.
yeah. And that's what I listened to. My favorite was Daniel Amos,
Mm-hmm.
and people say, "Who's that? Who's he?" And so, no, it's a group actually, but
Like Led Zeppelin. Who's Led Zeppelin? Oh, never mind. You wouldn't understand.
no, you wouldn't understand. Yeah. Well, anyway, so but she's more conversant on it than I am, and she'll know. Oh, I love the song, and and quite often there's a story behind the songs.
Most of the time, and we love to highlight those stories when we were playing. So my wife and I host the morning show, Rich and Tanya in the morning. And during our show and other shows during the day, we love to play audio from these artists to tell about how the song came about, where they were in their life, because most of these songs come out of a struggle or questions or difficulties in life, and it's an expression of how God met them where they are. And that's exactly why it ministers to us as listeners that we can relate to, even though it may not be the same circumstance, being in that similar situation, and God speaks to us and helps walk us through that.
Well, that's another thing I noticed about the change in music when I was in high school, in the 70s, is that it was Christian music, but it was also addressing issues in our lives as opposed to just praise songs or things of that nature. And it was more contemporary in the sense that it was addressing contemporary things in our life going on. And you'd listen to an album and there'd be some very overt praise songs, but there'd also be some topical songs, you might say, maybe, songs about what's going on in the world from a Christian perspective.
Right.
And you didn't get that from the hymnal, and that's fine. Hymns got their place, but this had their place too. And there was some resistance in the Christian community to this kind of music.
Yeah.
I mean, not my generation, but from the older ones. They're like, this can't be Christian music because it's too close to rock and roll sounding. Sounds too much like the Beatles or something like that.
Every era has a contemporary style that is edgy and not as accepting, and then the contemporary becomes classic. As we age and as our preferences change. So for the journey, we are typically, who we target, and the bulk of our audience, about 75% of our audience, are females between 35 and 60, 65, just because this is the kind of music that they have grown up listening to, contemporary Christian music. And so, but we also play Forrest Frank and some other, Josiah Queen and some other.
Forrest Frank of Baylor grad.
Oh, Baylor grad, man.
Yes,
He is loud and proud. In fact, he's going to be down in Waco next month.
He's going to do the first concert at the Foster Pavilion.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so as far as, the resistance, a lot of people, my parents are like, he's just a dumb kid, whatever. So, but there was some like, that can't be Christian. And then they said that about hip hop. It can't be Christian. It's hip hop, because they associated hip hop was the more grungier elements of the musical style or whatever. Or you couldn't have a Christian grunge, which is a word I already used.
Yeah.
Or you couldn't have Christian punk, which you think, is that really a thing? Well, it was, and but it wasn't speaking to everybody. It was speaking to a very select group sometimes,
right?
And that select group would not have been talked to, so to speak, unless they were doing it.
If you set I have a 30-year-old son and a 25-year-old daughter, and they love music. They're vocalists and musicians. But if you set them down and had them listen to a Larry Norman song, they might appreciate the message. They might appreciate the musicality, but that's not going to be their preference. Now, some of the stuff they listen to, they play me, even if it's contemporary or and I'm like, that's not going to be my regular diet of what I listen to, but I can appreciate the message. But again, it's all based on our musical preferences. Really, if you think about stylistically, it really is what we're comfortable with, closer to what we've heard more. But to reach different people, sometimes you have to do different things. As long as the message remains the same, as long as the heart remains the same, I think the musical style can change.
Well, the standard I have for Christian music is, does the music overwhelm the message?
Yeah.
or does the messenger overwhelm the message?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is if you can't understand the lyrics, and what good is it, right? And if the music is not well done, who's going to listen?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have a situation where, well, I'm calling it Christian music. Well, I'm not getting the message. You got to get the message, or else it's really not working as a Christian song or whatnot. But it's still, I just was very fortunate to have acquaintances that kind of broadened my musical awareness, so to speak, about all this going on, because I had no idea till maybe I was, I don't know, 14 or 15, that this kind of music was even existed. And so it was really kind of an interesting, like embarking in a whole new world.
It is.
Who do you say are your mainstay artists that you play a lot of?
So Mercy Me for King and Country.
Yeah.
Ann Wilson, who is a fairly new artist that's kind of crossing over to a country sound.
Right.
Josiah Queen, Forrest Frank. That the names escape me. Chris Tomlin, of course, Toby Mac. We play a couple of Michael W. Smith songs. The Michael W. Smith song that we're playing right now is a compilation, or not a compilation, but a collaboration with For King and Country, A Place in This World, an old classic of his. And we're playing that kind of as a remake.
How do you determine what's on the playlist? I mean, because in our typical radio station, you go by the charts and the hits and whatever else.
That's what we do as well. I mean, we look at, number one, what's out there that's being played. It's a balance between playing what we feel like fits us and who we are and speaks to our listener, and what other stations are playing. We don't want to just play music because everybody else is playing it, but we run it through the filter of, number one, does it accomplish our mission of encouraging people? If it's not encouraging, if it's not uplifting, we're not playing it. Or if the music is too loud over the vocal, it has to fit within all of that. So then we'll play that. But we're not just playing the new songs. We're also playing some of the gold songs. We have a For Him song that's running, and For Him.
Which one is it?
The Message.
Okay.
Yeah, or Where There Is Faith. Actually, The Message is the name of the album.
That's the song I'm thinking. I have actually on my phone here. Yeah. And have the CD. Yeah.
So Andy Chrisman, who was one of the members of For Him, actually does a worship show, and we have that on Saturday mornings from 6 to 8. Worship with Andy Chrisman. He hosts that show, and so we carry that show. But yeah, so those are some of the artists. Elevation Worship, we play a lot of them. They're more of the contemporary worship style. So yeah, just about anything that you would hear on a lot of other stations, we're playing, but we're trying to create who we are as a culture and who we want to be as the journey, and not just a copy and paste of some other station.
Josh, you throw up their logo for a moment, please. Thank you. Yeah, you don't want basically be, basically getting on your playlist from somebody else. But I just wondered because, you're in a different situation in a sense as a nonprofit. I mean, how do you know the size of your listenership? I mean, most radio stations have their ways of doing it, through the how is it, Nielsen ratings?
Nielsen ratings,
still do
yeah.
it. Okay.
We are technically part of the DFW Metro. So all of the radio stations in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it's defined by, a certain map. We're the southwest corner. Johnson County is the southwest corner of that. So we subscribe to Nielsen ratings, and the way that works is they either will send out a diary that you fill out, or they send you a little pager thing that you wear, device, and it electronically picks up on the signals of the station, and then it reports back to Nielsen how many people were listening, and then they take this equation, they extrapolate out, okay, so then for every station you've got these many people listening. It's not the only measurement, but it is a measurement that we use.
And you get this data, do you use it to tailor your playlist?
In that, when we look at demographic, because it'll show us what percentage are male, what percentage of racial demographic is listening. We use that to define who our target audience is and who we're reaching more. But it's kind of is it chicken and the egg, right? Do you play more of who's listening now, or do you tailor your programming for who you want to reach? And if we're doing a good job, then we're tailoring it for who we want to reach, which, and just, so the last couple of days I was at the Gaylord Texan in Grapevine for the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, huge convention. And even though it says National Religious Broadcasters, There's people from all over the globe, and it's radio and television and all the different things. And one of the things that we're hearing is that Barna research says that the listening to a contemporary Christian music station, 30% of the people listening are not saved or unchurched. 70% are. So we don't want to do things just for believers and just for church-going folk, right? We also want to do things that will reach those who don't know Jesus, they don't know God, and they're not part of a church. What can we do to help them get into a deeper relationship, or at least start a relationship with Jesus?
It's interesting because you would expect that most of your listeners would be involved in church, or have a background in it, or already, or people of faith. But I guess some people who aren't in that category are looking for something uplifting or something like that.
That's the beauty of being on what we call terrestrial radio. In other words, 88.3 FM. Now, we also stream online. We have an app that you can listen to us, and you can listen through our website as well. But that's the beauty of terrestrial radio, is people in their car, and they hit search, and they're not just searching on the radio, they're searching in live. And when they, and again, this is where God comes in, they hit search, and it lands on 88.3, and they hear that song, and it connects with them, and it ministers to them. And so that's what we want to be there for, is to help those who are not even just searching for Christ, a relationship with Him. Yes, initially that's where it starts. But we also want to be a good partner in the community to help them know about what are some of the local churches in the area. What are some of the local organizations that are doing good work that we can partner with? So this is what I tell a lot of the organizations and churches. Our job is not to feed the homeless as a station. Our job is not to help those who are in need. Our job is not to disciple and teach and get people saved. Our job is to be the mouthpiece and the megaphone of what is going on around Johnson and Southern Tarrant County, and let the listeners know what's going on so they can get connected with these organizations.
Well, my goal on my radio station is similar, but it's and as far as outreach and whatnot, I'm trying to maybe give them more the news or whatnot, what's going on. And this show has been doing that now since September of 19. I'm pleased with the fact that we've survived this long, because I didn't know how long it was going to last, certainly. But next week, we're going to have some information that your listeners would like to know, even if it's not really, spiritually oriented, so to speak. I'm going to have Greg Cooper on, a gentleman who knows a lot about what's going on in Austin about the tax situation. And, Christians pay taxes, so they want to know what's going to happen with their property taxes.
They should pay taxes.
Well, they should, yes. Well, but I'm just saying that's the kind of outreach I'm doing. And then the next day, I have the Amanda Man Clark Project on Tuesday. And if you're not familiar with that group, they do awareness for colorectal cancer, because the namesake of that group, Amanda Man Clark, died of it, and their friends put it together, this little organization, to try to make it aware about the need for colonoscopies. And so even though, your listeners may not be, they tune into you, they still probably want to hear about these other things that's going on in the community as well as the nonprofits. In fact, when you just as we were talking, I was checking out my phone. Megan, our friend, has booked a date for a month from now. For the next step.
Megan and Summer were just in the studio this morning, and we were talking about their Walk for Life that's coming up.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
And see, that's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because when you listen to the journey, obviously the music is going to be very inspirational and encouraging. And then what Tanya and I, and what Chris will say, and Tom and the others that are on the air, what we say is encouraging, but we're also not just talking about things of the Bible. We're also talking about what's going on in the community.
Right.
You had Colin Gregory on a couple of days ago.
Hey, good. You heard.
And he and I, just at this last Burleson Chamber event, we said, look, we need to get together and get a date where he could come be on, because I do some little interviews that we run during the morning show, and talk with Derek Rose from the Burleson Rec Center, and Safety Works is the name of his company. We talked about, because February is Heart Health Month, and so what are some of the ways that we can continue to stay healthy, and what happens if something happens? So we do things like that as well that will help the community understand more about how to be a better citizen, also to take care of yourself, how to raise children, talk about parenting. We talk about marriage. In fact, Tanya and I, my wife and I, we've been married 34 years, but in 2017, we almost divorced. And it was I was a senior pastor of a church. She was the worship pastor. There's some things that had gone on in our marriage to cause us to drift apart. And the long story short is that God performed a miracle in our marriage, and it's better now than it ever has been. But one of the things that we like to share is we understand what it's like to go through a tough marriage. We understand what it's like that any marriage is difficult. It doesn't come easy. And so how can I be a better husband? How can you be a better wife? How can we be better parents? Those are the kind of things that you talk about around the dinner table. And those are the things we want to talk about during our show as well.
That's interesting because that's what this show has evolved to. My show has evolved into that. And I think, again, that was it by design? I think it was somebody's design, so to speak. Somebody, because I started off just, talking about current events and ranting about politics, but I haven't done as much of that, nearly as much in the last several months or a couple of years even because of this. I do. And also, I enjoy it more. I feel like it's in a sense. I mean, because I feel like somebody somewhere may benefit from it.
Well, you and I, we had heard about each other, but the first time we met, we were sitting at one of the coffee shops. I can't remember.
Black Rifle.
Black Rock.
No, Black Rock. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Black Rifle is a coffee brand, but not a coffee shop. It's Black Rock over off of Wilshire.
Yeah. So we were sitting there drinking coffee, talking about what you do, talking about what I do, talking about life, marriage, education. That's kind of what we want to do with Rich and Tanya in the morning. We would be doing what we're doing now, but we just play music, and we'd talk for about a minute and a half, and then play a song, and then come back and talk. But it's just about being oriented to encouraging you where you are and life, no matter what you're experiencing.
Well, this show we just did will be on community radio at 6 o'clock tonight and 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
And so you'll get some, but tell the people out there how they can get a hold of your station for not just donations, but you get take prayer requests.
Absolutely.
You fill out the rest of the show. We got 3.5 minutes left. You could fill that out, I'll bet.
Well, you can go to our website, 883thejourney.org, 883thejourney.org. And yes, you can make a contribution there. But there's also a community calendar, and we have a list of all the things that are going on, not all the things, but a lot of the things that are going on in the community. And in fact, if you have something you want to let us know about, you can submit events through there. Tell us about what's going on, and we'll talk about it. We'll let people know. There's also ways under community, there's prayer. There's a prayer wall where you can submit prayer requests. And we have other listeners that will pray for your need, and we do as a staff as well. And then you can also let us know. We have an app. You can download the app onto your smartphone, either through Android or through iPhone. Download the app, and under the menu at the top left-hand side, there's a shout-out feature, and you can send us a message and let us know how much you love the journey or what you're looking for, if you're wanting more of this and more of that, so just reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. We'd love to be able to do that.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thank you.
I appreciate the fact you give us the shout outs early. What do you do, like Monday or Tuesday usually?
Typically the day of your show.
Okay, good.
We'll give the shout out and say who's going to be on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
I look at my schedule here, if I get my words out right. And I'm pretty booked in March. I'm fortunate, and almost all of these are going to be either civic leaders or nonprofit leaders.
That's awesome.
And things like that. And I feel very blessed and fortunate. I said this quite often on the show. It's almost like my logo is that I feel so fortunate to sit in this chair and talk to people like Megan over at Next Up, she and Summer, or Lisa Bolton House at the SD
Harvest House,
and Promises Community, you name it. And I got like a front row seat.
Have you had Lisa, the Crazy Eight?
Oh yes, oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
She does her own podcast too, but she'll be on probably. I know she has their City on the Hill event in early May, and I'm quite sure I'll have her on before then because she's done it the last 2 or 3 years. But I have Lisa Schwartz she's a legend in this town.
Yeah, she's been here quite a while,
and she has a really good oil shop. If you're a cook like I am,
we got some chocolates from her for our Valentine's contest, and it was really good. Not from her, but from her shop.
Yeah,
and I'll say this: a lot of these partners that we're talking about, Crazy Eight and Harvest House and Next Step, Cleburne Pregnancy Center in Cleburne. A lot of the churches, we partner with them not only just to promote what's going on, but every quarter we do what we call an outreach. So we'll collect supplies for Crazy Eight and their homes for the ladies. We'll collect food for Harvest House during May, the food drive. But we also do international outreach. And so there's a Cups Mission is an organization that we partner with. And I'm going to be going to Malawi next week. In fact, Wednesday I leave to go to Malawi and I'll be there for about 10 days.
Oh, goodness.
And so there's a pastor's training school that we as a station have kind of partnered with to help support. And so I'm going to go do some teaching training there and see what's going on. But I was going to mention, while I'm gone, the week of March the 10th, while I'm gone, one of the legends in radio that I look up to, Frank Reed, is going to be guest host and filling in for us on the morning show.
He used to be at KLTY, right?
He used to be at KLTY for years, 30-something years.
Yeah, right.
He's a good friend, and he loves the journey, and so he's going to be filling in for Tanya and I, because while I'm gone, Tanya's going to take some time off as well. She's not going to Malawi, but she's just going to be off the air. So Frank Reed is going to be filling in 6 to 10 during the week of March the 10th.
Well, I tell you what, you can do me a favor, because I'm trying to branch out more into the Cleburne market, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have a nonprofit that wants to talk, I've had the Children's Advocacy Center from Cleburne, but if you have others that contact you, you know, this is a good platform for them to get the word out.
Yeah,
because I just really enjoy that. You know, I've had a couple of people say, "Hey, you know, I missed your political shows," and I say, "Well, yeah, sometimes I want to rant too, but this is
and there's a place for that. I mean,
right. But
we
there's
need
a higher
to be informed.
purpose. Yeah, and I hope to, if I have an empty spot, I'll do it. But it seems like, well, okay, I'm going to do on Tuesday. I don't have a guest, and boom, someone at the last minute says, "Hey, I really need to promote something, or I need to talk about something." And I really do enjoy having like the mayor on and a couple of city council members on.
Sure.
And have had the county judge on a couple of times. I was really, really fortunate.
Well, I'll do what I can to connect you with Meredith and Pam at the Cleburne Pregnancy Center, but also the Cleburne Chamber of Commerce.
They do great work. Them actually.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to put a bug in their ear to connect with you. But I appreciate what you're doing, Brad, because it really is helping people in the community know about what's going on and kind of helping to build relationships with the guests that you have on. It's not just a transactional thing. Have me on your podcast and I'll talk about it in the radio, but it really is about relationships.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Lisa Schwartz, when she's on the show, she closes us off with a prayer. How about it?
Absolutely.
Knock us
no
out.
problem. Yeah, God, thank you for the time that we've had just to connect with Brad and with those that are watching either live or if they watch later on demand. We just thank you for the opportunity to talk about what you're doing through the journey and how we're reaching people and help to encourage them through music and ministry. And I just pray again a blessing on Brad and Robin as well, that you just continue to guide them and lead them through this venture, through not only Mr. Allard's Neighborhood, but through community radio. Use this in a unique way, as you already started doing. Use it in a unique way to reach people and help connect them with this community. That's so important, God. We all need to have connection. We need to have that relationship. And what he's doing here is helping people to have that relationship and connection. I just pray that you give him favor. I pray that you just give him sponsorships and guests and content that will just take the show to the whole next level for not only this, but also community radio. And we just thank you for the time today. Everyone that's watching, everyone that's listening, I pray for health, life, and strength for them and their family as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, I'm very humbled by that. I was actually, you're praying specifically for this podcast on the station.
Absolutely.
I can't help but succeed now, right?
Yeah, right. There you go.
Josh, thank you for everything.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, and I'll see y'all on Monday. I have Greg Cooper. Like I said, we're going to talk about property tax issues. And then, like I said, also Tuesday, talk about colorectal cancer and the need for coloscopies. It may not sound like an exciting topic, but the ladies have been on here before. And I think they have a very good message for all of us. So we'll see y'all next week, and y'all take care.